Ancient flatbread. This is the version of pizza that existed before anyone called it pizza, and it is older than you think. The first thing most people get wrong about pizza is that the tomato is not an original ingredient. Tomatoes didn't arrive in Europe until the 16th century, which means pizza, flat dough with toppings, baked over heat, existed for over 2,000 years before its most iconic ingredient even showed up. The earliest documented version is Persian, 6th century BC. Soldiers serving under Darius the Great baked flatbreads directly on their battle shields, then loaded them with cheese and dates. Practical, portable. No more than a carb base topped with fat and flavour. It's the same logic, just without the delivery app. By around 19 BC, Virgil is referencing round bread topped with vegetables in the Aeneid. The Romans had their own version, a layered flatbread with honey and cheese baked on a tile, and the word pizza itself first appears in a written document in 997 AD in the Italian town of Gaeta. None of this looks like what you'd order on a Friday night. No tomato, no mozzarella, no red sauce. But the structural logic is identical. Flat dough, something on top, heat underneath. Ancient flatbread is not a precursor to pizza. It is pizza. The rest of this video is just what happened next. Tomatoes were considered poisonous by most of Europe when they first arrived. The fact that someone eventually put one on bread and ate it anyway is either brave or desperate, and it's the reason everything else in this video exists. If you're enjoying this so far, subscribing takes 1 second, and it genuinely helps. Now onto the pizza that changed everything, Neapolitan. This is the pizza that all other modern pizza descends from, and it is the most tightly regulated food in the world. Naples, 18th century. The city is poor, dense, and loud. There's a class of street vendors called pizzaioli selling fast, cheap flatbreads topped with lard, salt, garlic, and anchovies to workers who eat standing up. No table required. This is the direct ancestor of everything that follows. Then, in 1889, a chef named Raffaele Esposito makes a pizza for Queen Margherita of Savoy. Tomato, mozzarella, basil. The colours of the Italian flag. The Queen loves it. The Margherita is born. It's one of food history's most romantic origin stories. It's also probably not entirely true. Food historian Francesco de Bouchard documented that exact tomato-mozzarella-basil combination in his written record of Neapolitan customs in 1866, 23 years before the royal visit. So the pizza existed before the story. The story just made it famous. That's worth knowing. What is not in dispute is how tightly the real thing is controlled today. In 1984, the Associazione Verace Pizza Napoletana, the AVPN, was founded in Naples to codify exactly what Neapolitan pizza is and is not. The rules are specific to a degree that would seem extreme applied to almost anything else. The dough, type 00 wheat flour only. Water, salt, fresh yeast, no oil, no sugar. Fermented for a minimum of 8 to 24 hours. The bake, a wood-fired oven, 800 to 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Cook time 60 to 90 seconds. The maximum diameter 35 centimeters. The crust must be soft, not crispy. In 2017, UNESCO added the art of the Neapolitan pizzaiolo to its intangible cultural heritage list. Here's the distinction almost everyone gets wrong. UNESCO didn't protect the pizza. It protected the craft, the human skill, the technique, the tradition of the maker, which means a pizzaiolo trained in Naples can open a certified Neapolitan pizzeria in Tokyo or Sao Paulo. The knowledge travels, the rules travel with it, and since a 2022 EU regulation, it is now technically illegal in Europe to label a pizza Neapolitan without full compliance. Some of the oldest pizzerias in Naples could theoretically be in violation. There are currently around 600 AVPN certified pizzerias in the entire world. 120 of them are in North America. 600! In the whole world, there are more Michelin-starred restaurants than certified Neapolitan pizzerias, which tells you everything about how rare the real thing actually is. New York. This is what happens when the source code of level 2 gets uploaded to a completely different city. Different water, different oven, different hunger, different pace. Between 1880 and 1920, around 4 million Italians, many from Naples and Sicily, immigrated to the United States. They brought the dough, but they arrived in a different world. Different water, different flour, gas ovens instead of wood-fired ones, canned tomatoes instead of fresh San Marzanos, low-moisture mozzarella because fresh mozzarella didn't store well enough for a high-volume city kitchen. In 1905, a Neapolitan immigrant named Gennaro Lombardi opened the first pizzeria in the United States on Spring Street in Manhattan. Lombardi's is still open today. What evolved is not a compromised version of Neapolitan pizza. It's a different answer to a different question. The question being, how do you feed a city of people who are walking and working and don't have time to sit down? New York pizza uses olive oil and sugar in the dough. Neapolitan uses neither. The sauce is cooked, seasoned, garlicky. Neapolitan sauce is raw crushed tomatoes and salt only. The cheese is low moisture, grated, spread across the whole pie. The result is a larger, wider, stiffer slice, with a crispier base, built to fold in half and eat while moving. New Yorkers will tell you the secret is the water. The specific mineral profile of the city's tap water affecting the gluten structure of the dough. You can actually buy New York municipal tap water, bottled and shipped, specifically for making pizza dough at home. Whether it makes any measurable difference is genuinely contested, but the belief is real, and it's sincere. And in food culture that matters too. Chicago deep dish. This is not thick pizza. That's the wrong frame entirely. Chicago deep dish is pizza built in reverse order, and once you understand the construction, you understand why it had to be. 1943, Chicago. Ike Sewell and Rick Ricardo opened Pizzeria Uno at the corner of Wabash and Ohio. Their original plan was a Mexican restaurant. One of them ate a bad enchilada, got sick, and they pivoted to pizza. Here is how the pizza is built. Dough goes into a deep, oiled steel pan. Cheese goes directly onto the dough first, then toppings, then a thick layer of uncooked chunky tomato sauce on top. Sauce last. Always. Why? Because deep dish bakes for 30 to 45 minutes compared to 90 seconds for Neapolitan. Put cheese on top of a 45-minute bake and you get a burnt rubbery skin. The sauce on top acts as a protective lid. It steams everything underneath it. The result is dense, rich, and structurally closer to a savoury pie than a flatbread. Deep dish is not trying to be Neapolitan. It's not trying to be New York. It is solving a completely different engineering problem, and the solution happens to involve putting the sauce on top. So far, Level 1, no tomato, flat dough, heat. Level 2, 90 seconds, 900 degrees, 600 certified places on Earth. Level 3, same logic, new city, fold it in half. Level 4, build it upside down, bake it for 45 minutes. We are not changing toppings here. We are rebuilding the architecture every single time. Detroit. This pizza was invented in 1946. Stayed almost completely unknown outside of one city for 65 years, won a world championship in Las Vegas in 2012, and within days was being replicated across the country. That is the actual story. A bar owner named Gus Guerra starts making pizza at his restaurant, Buddy's Rendezvous, using rectangular steel pans sourced from a local automotive supplier. The pans were originally designed as parts trays or drip pans for use on the factory floor. Detroit in 1946 had no shortage of industrial steel. The pan changes everything. The thick steel conducts heat slowly and evenly from the sides and bottom. Guerra presses high hydration dough, well above 70% water content, into the pan and lets it fill every corner. He pushes cheese all the way to the edges, so it makes direct contact with the hot-oiled pan walls. That cheese doesn't melt. It caramelizes into a crispy, lacy crust around the entire perimeter. This is called a frico edge. It is the defining characteristic of Detroit-style pizza, and once you have had it, you will think about it for a long time. Tomato sauce goes on top in 2 parallel strips down the center, sometimes called racing stripes. Whether that's a reference to the city's automotive identity or just practical portioning is unclear. Probably both. For 65 years, this pizza was essentially unknown outside Michigan. Locals called it Sicilian style. The label Detroit style came from a trade publication decades later. In 2012, it won the International Pizza Expo World Championship in Las Vegas. Within days, operators across the country were calling Buddy's to ask how it was made. Buddy's Rendezvous is still open. Same location on Conant Avenue in Detroit. Same recipe. 65 years of quiet, and then one afternoon in Las Vegas changed everything. New Haven a pizza. You don't pronounce it like the Italian. You say a beats. It comes from old Neapolitan dialect, and people in New Haven will correct you, calmly and immediately if you get it wrong. New Haven, Connecticut. Frank Pepe opened Frank Pepe Pizzeria Napolitana in 1925, one of the oldest continuously operating pizzerias in the United States. The oven burns coal, not wood, not gas. And coal burns hotter and more consistently than either. The result is a crust that blisters in specific places and chars lightly in others. The pizza comes out oblong, not round. This is not a mistake. It is not corrected. The signature pie is the white clam, no tomato sauce, a base of olive oil, grated pecorino romano, garlic and oregano, then fresh little neck clams shucked to order, laid directly on top. It sounds wrong in the way that a lot of great things sound wrong before you try them. By wide consensus among food critics and pizza obsessives, it is exceptional. There are no New Haven pizza chains. There is no national version of this. The legendary pizzerias in New Haven have not meaningfully expanded. They haven't needed to. People drive hours, fly from other cities, wait in line, and then drive home. The pizza does not come to you. Some of the most interesting versions of a thing survive precisely because they stayed local. The question this video is quietly asking is not which pizza is best. It's what you've been missing by only ever ordering from the big menu, contemporary and global. This is where the categories stop working. Level 7 is not a single style. It is what happens when the source code from Level 2 gets downloaded by the rest of the world and run on completely different hardware with whatever ingredients happen to be nearby. In St. Louis, the crust is unleavened, no yeast at all, cracker thin, and the cheese is Provel, a local processed blend of cheddar, Swiss and provolone that melts into a smooth, almost liquid layer. The pizza is cut into squares, not triangles, squares, called the party cut. It is deeply regional and fiercely defended by everyone who grew up with it. In Sweden, kebab pizza is a national institution, doner meat, French fries and garlic sauce on a round base, most commonly eaten on New Year's Eve. No irony intended, complete sincerity. In Japan, corn and mayonnaise are standard toppings. In Argentina, Italian immigrants who arrived with more access to food than they'd ever had in Naples transformed the thin original into a thick, heavily cheesed main course called pizza de molde, a pizza that reflects not where it came from, but what its makers finally had enough of. And Norway, the highest pizza-consuming country per person on Earth. £11 per person per year. No unique Norwegian style explains this. No famous pizzeria. Just a country that absorbed pizza into its everyday food culture so completely and so genuinely that it outconsumed the country that invented it. These 7 levels are not a ranking. A Neapolitan pizza is not better than a Detroit square. A New Haven pizza is not competing with a New York slice. Each one is the answer to a specific question. What do the people here need? What ingredients do they actually have? And what does their daily life taste like? The Persian soldier baking flatbread on a shield in 500 BC was answering the same question. And whatever gets invented next in whatever city, with whatever pan, using whatever's local will be answering it too. Pizza is now a $282 billion global industry, the most widely eaten food on Earth. It started as a flatbread for people who had almost nothing, because it turns out that's the right answer to a lot of different questions. The real debate isn't which of these 7 levels is the best, it's which one most people have completely wrong. Leave it below.